whose individual members are equipped for their role of service within the church and community, including the release and training of those called to translocal ministry.
How else do you think we equip people? Obviously teaching is a big part of it. Do you think that a church leader should be consciously all the time seeking to identify all the way through his church who has potential for what, or how does it best work? How do we equip people?
I think that the small group system is hugely helpful, and I know for me, those many years ago, working through just reading the story of Moses, and notice how Jethro said to Moses, why do all the people come to you? And it's like Moses hadn't thought any different. I go to meet God, I look after the people. And Jethro said, no, break it up, smaller groups, some over 50s, over 100s and so on. And actually, when I first read that, that changed the way we did church, because it preceded the small group phenomenon. I was learning from God. I'm sure other people were in all sorts of settings all over the place. So we found ourselves doing small groups, and then later learned, small groups are happening all over the place. But we did it because I found something in the story of Moses, and so we subdivided into small groups. Some people say it's very dangerous, you'll lose your congregation, and some people wouldn't go that way, but I felt no, that's very important. So being in a small group, it didn't mean actually that the pastor has to see everybody. If he can appoint certain leaders, they can watch out for others as well. And so I think we've noticed it in our student work in Brighton, which began to grow, and then there were teams, and then these guys, there's another guy coming through. So people can spot people. It doesn't have to always be the elders or the senior guy, but looking for giftedness must be part of church life.
And I suppose one way of equipping people is to give them opportunity to do the thing that they need to do. And how is that done in the framework where it's a risk to give someone an opportunity, and when you feel, I think I'd do a better job than that person, but I think I need to help equip them, how do we work with that tension?
I think that churches are all at different stages, and so sometimes a big church, for a guy who's a novice to take a full Sunday meeting when you've got hundreds out there is pretty scary and a big jump. So there needs to be steps taken. Now, in a smaller church, that's not so much of a problem. Someone can preach in a smaller church and can be assessed. And indeed, I've heard of people being given, right, this morning, you've got a 10-minute slot. That's all I'm asking you for, 10 minutes. Then the pastor still brings the main word. But just beginning to create contexts. I think for some of us too, we have clusters of small groups. So you might get in a midweek meeting, 70 or 80 people, and a guy could say, right, you preach to those guys this week. So you can create contexts where people can learn to fly. They can learn, and they can have someone sitting there and assessing them. I think it's better to be preaching to a company. When I was at Bible college, you had to preach to tiny little groups, and I found that a bit unreal. But I think to preach to a company of people, and you're actually doing it, others helping you, assessing you, it's got to be valuable. And also for some to travel out among, say, some of the smaller churches who are a bit pressed. And sometimes the pastor is not full-time. He's already hard-pressed to do his job, family, preach every Sunday. So it could be that in one of the bigger churches, there are young guys who are available. You could go out once a month or help that church through by being there, and you're learning at the same time.